All right, welcome to the Week 9 training video where we're going to review our Week 8 games. This video is going to be a little bit different for those of you that are unaware of. I was dealing with some personal illness through the weekend and into Monday. That's kind of got things in my schedule kind of off kilter, and so I wasn't able to watch as much video as I typically do, and had to ask for some help from other people to get some plays together, and so there's not even going to be an offensive holding video this week. So just this one video, and so we'll see how it goes. We're going to start with some plays. The first set of plays are actually plays that a coach sent us, because I always think it's nice for you guys to kind of know how the sausage is made a little bit. So the coach sent this in. He wants an offensive hold on this block right here. And you can see there is some restriction. There's some demonstrated restriction, not major, but some, right? So we can kind of understand where he's coming from. But the second question we have to ask ourselves is, even if there is demonstrated restriction, does it gain a material advantage to the play? And the runner slips down right there anyway. And we've been hounding you guys that we want to see demonstrated restriction that has a material impact on the play. And with the runner going down right there, we were able to say to the coach, hey, we determined that there was no material restriction gained. And so this would be a play on, so no foul here. Play 116, coach again sent this in because he wants a touchdown, right? Of course he does, right? I don't even care about the play itself. We're not even going to break it down. Don't care about the play itself. We went to the coach and said, essentially, hey, the film's not 100% clear. What I do care about is our mechanics, right? You can see our deep wing. Where should you be right now? Already, you should be stationary at the goal line extended 2 yards off the sideline. Go back to the start of the play. We don't know where the deep wing on the near side started, but the deep wing on the far side started at the 5. We would hope that we would be on the same yard line. So, especially with us starting at the 27, I would say probably at the 27, go ahead and start on the goal line. But if you want to start at the 5, I'm fine. But as soon as you get this action right here, as soon as he breaks this, you should be getting to the goal line immediately. That should be number one concern, is getting to the goal line. Because we're just not in a correct position to rule. And this is going to be a tight ruling about whether he's in bounds or not, and we're not in the correct position. So we just got to be in the correct position. The goal line is the most important line on the field. You guys have heard me say that many, many times over the years. The goal line is the most important. Football is a game of lines, and the goal line is the most important line. So we've just got to do a better job here of getting into the goal line so that we can make a better ruling here. Play 38, again, the defensive coach wants the offensive holding again. It's this block right here. How many times have you guys heard me say the offensive player is driving his feet? And if you look at this block, they engage, everything's legal. Both players are just driving their feet, right? The defensive player is trying to get out wide. The offensive player is trying to push him there, right? There is a spin, right? But let's look at the end zone view. It's this block right here. It looks to us like the defensive player just spins on his own. It's not that he's trying to get to the runner and is restricted in a way that he spins. Looks to us like he just decides to spin on his own. So we were able to just go to the coach and say, hey, it looks like the offensive player is driving his feet. The defensive player appears to spin on his own volition, and we think this is a legal block. So we actually just told the coach we think this is a 100% legal block. And then the next play, the coach wants an offensive holding on this up receiver right here, and this is similar to the other play, where there is probably, in fact, this is material restriction. There's no doubt about this. He grabs him, grabs his jersey, spins him all the way into the backfield. So there is material restriction, but what's the second aspect? We want to see material advantage. We want to see that the offensive team gains a material advantage as a result of the hold, and the tackle is made immediately, probably for a loss. And so we're just going to say, yeah, this is no foul, right? We want to see demonstrated restriction that has a material advantage gained. And on those 3 plays, we just don't see that. So we were able to just, go to the coach and say we believe these are not fouls, and we think our officials correctly passed on these. So just wanted you to see how the sausage is made a little bit. Play 9 is hopefully a little bit of more of a reminder than anything else. We get a play here, kind of gets busted. It's a little bit of a trick play. And then the running back just says, I don't see anybody. He throws the ball away. And your question is going to be, but he was outside the tackle box and the ball crossed the line of scrimmage. Remember, that protection only exists for the player that receives the snap, i.e. the quarterback. So if you run a trick play like this, where you switch the ball twice, as a matter of fact, but at this point right here, the only player that has that legal grounding protection is number 6. No other player can legally ground the football. And so hopefully, again, this is more of a reminder. So this player out here, if he wants to get rid of it, he has to throw the ball towards an eligible receiver. And if he doesn't do that, which he does not do, he doesn't have protection, and so it's intentional grounding. So a correct call for intentional grounding here. Hopefully a little bit more of a reminder than anything else. Play 16, we get some contact here on the kicker, right? But you can see our referee kind of immediately comes pointing in. And what he's going to rule here is that the blocker blocked the defensive player into the kicker. It's a judgment call. And if you want to rule that, that's what I like about this is you can see our referee is communicating that to the coaching staff and pointing out the situation. And then you could say he's already going in. This is going to need an explanation because all anybody's ever going to see is the kicker going to the ground, right? And so, and you can see he is tied up. And it does look like they're completely engaged when there's contact with the kicker. So we're going to say correct no call there. But again, the thing I like best is we're getting some sort of signal from a referee of, yeah, I saw it. I'm judging that this player blocked the defensive player end. All right, two-play vignette. Okay, so this offensive player and this the tackle / tight end, I think it's the left tackle, versus the defensive end right here. So on the near side, that's who we're going to be concentrating on. Okay, two-play vignette. All right, you can see, look at him pin the defensive player's helmet back, right? With prolonged contact, he's pinning the defensive helmet's players back. We've got to get a foul on this. He forces the helmet off, right? We've got to get this where you force a defensive player's helmet back and pin it back. That hurts, right? Is the first of all. Who can call this? Really anybody in this situation in a three-man triangle with the referee, umpire, and short wing on the near side, right? Referee, it's kind of running right in front of you. The runner goes right in front of this block. So right at this point, it should probably get your attention. The short wing, I know the short wing's overloaded, right? There's a lot of traffic over on this side of the field, but that's the job. Like, hopefully this gets your attention as well. And then even umpires always think about blocks behind the play, right? And can maybe help us out. Somebody's got to see this, but we don't, right? So we don't see it, and so the defensive player gets frustrated. Notice it's play 113. So we end up with 2 plays later, right? So it's these 2 players again, right? We didn't call the hands to the face. The 2 players get tangled up, and now they're in a wrestling match, and then 33 starts throwing punches, right? Now, am I excusing 33's behavior? Absolutely not. You throw a punch, you got to be ejected, right? We got to enforce the rules of the game. But just understand that sometimes things escalate, right? And that's why it's important, going back to 113, that we keep our eyes and we catch this type of activity, because if we don't catch this activity, that sometimes 2 plays later, things will blow up, and we get the situation that we do here on 115. So you got to catch stuff like this. And then, at this point, I would have loved to have seen the short wing already running in. I know the plays over here. Don't care. The short wing on the near side, don't care about this. This does not matter to you. These are the only 2 kids on earth that matter to you right now. And you can see our referee's already gotten his attention attracted to it, and he starts making his way over. Then the umpire sees it, and he starts heading his way over. We do a good job as best as we can. But again, think about play 113, which maybe set the whole train in motion. Play 133, we've already talked about this a little bit in one of our training videos. As soon as you get this set up right here, alarm bells need to go off. Remember, in high school, they are not allowed to do the tush push. You are not allowed to push the runner in high school. College and pro are different, but in high school, you are not allowed to push the runner. And as you see here, they're clearly setting up for it, right? And then the offensive player even puts his hands directly on the butt. It's a foul, right? We don't get to write the rule book. In the high school rule book, it is a foul. So the tush push is illegal in high school. As a reminder, we want to go ahead and get a foul for this for assisting the runner. Play 34, we talked a lot about illegal shifts. Good job catching this one. You could just see the offensive line especially is just never set. The tackle never gets set. We do shut this down for a false start, especially if it's an offensive line not getting set. I'm completely okay with it. As long as you don't get no call, I got your back. We just cannot allow this play to go off as legal. Textbook, by the book, it's probably an illegal shift. But especially if it's the offensive line, if you want to shut it down for a false start, I got your back. All right, play 71. I'm actually going to open up something and talk about, this came up whenever I was working on my flight pilot's license. It's called the Swiss cheese model of disaster prevention, right? Disasters don't happen when one thing goes wrong. Disasters happen when 2, 3, 4, 5 things go wrong, right? There's all these hazards, right? And then we have these prevention models and everything that we can do to try to prevent things from going wrong. You know, the first line of defense, the second line of defense, the third line of defense. When a disaster happens is when it slips through one of the holes in the first layer of defense. Then it slips through one of the holes of the second layer of defense. And then it slips through the hole in the third layer of defense. Then we get a disaster. Good example of this from an officiating perspective, this is an excellent model because there's 3 of them, is with penalty enforcement, right? Why do we have 3 officials mark off penalty enforcement? Because we're dealing with 3 human beings, right? And so the umpire is our first line of defense in marking it off, but sometimes he's a human and he lets one slip through, right? And then we have our change side short wing that's going to mark it off with him, but sometimes he's human and he lets things go through. It's that offside chain official that steps up and doesn't let it get missed that can correct things. But if he's asleep, now it slips through as well, and now we have a disaster when we misenforce a penalty, walk off 16 yards on a 15-yard foul, right? Swiss cheese model, again, multiple things have to go wrong. So let's talk about it. So we get this play here. It's 4th and 3. What should we be doing on 4th and 3? We've talked about it the last 2 years. On 4th and 3, both short wings should immediately be moving to the line to gain. And we don't do that. The ball gets snapped. Neither short wing moves to the line to gain. That's our first line of defense on a 4th and 3 situation. Then we get the quarterback's kind of scrambling, and you can see our short wings kind of looking downfield a little bit. At this point, the short wing on the near side, he's thinking maybe there's going to be a throw. Something grabs his attention. So he kind of takes his eyes off of it. But then he gets back, and then the quarterback gets tackled, right? What I'll say here is, again, our positioning's not great, just because our attention gets kind of turned away. And then we have to rule on the runner being down. And we're out of position there. And you'll notice the next line of defense. One short wing is marking the ball at the 43, and one short wing is marking the ball at the 42. So we have another line of defense that kind of breaks down, right? And that gets me to when we try to measure here, right? We end up putting the ball on the short wing's foot on the near side, and you can see the short wing on the far side is saying, hey, we got to move the ball up because he thinks the ball should be marked at the 42, but the short wing on the near side has already marked the ball backwards, back here at the 42, 42 and a half, 43. You know, we've got this. We don't look good, but eventually the referee says, hey, bring the chains out. And I'll fast forward a little bit. So we decided we're going to bring the chains out, which is fine. But what's our next line of defense, right? Our next line of defense is the clip. Before we do anything else, we've got to know our mechanics on a measurement, right? So the deep wing, you know, he does his job. He moves the down box to the forward stake, right? But the chains are already starting to move before we even get the down box to the forward stake, right? So we get the down box to the forward stake or about where it was, and that's fine. The next thing we'll notice here is the short wing, unfortunately, has grabbed the chain clip, and when we bring the chains out, the clip is not on the line. Even if the chain crew hasn't put the clip on the line, if we're going to do a measure, we have to have the clip on a major 5-yard line. We can't do a measurement with the clip in the middle of the chains. So we've got to move the clip over. And again, short wing on the near side has got to recognize that the short wing on the far side isn't putting the clip on the line and has to radio over. Put the clip on the line. Put the clip on the 45. We've got to get the clip to the 45. Actually, I think it should be the 50, but the 45 would be just as fine. It doesn't really matter, right? So we don't get the clip on the line, and then so now we're just running a clip that unfortunately is just kind of in the middle. It's not on a 5-yard line, and so we're just kind of running it out there, and it's just kind of, for lack of a better term, it's a disaster, right? And we don't have the clip on the right line. We end up getting the spot maybe incorrect. So I don't mean to harbor too hard on this crew, but we've got to think all of the things we could have done better to prevent this. We could have had both short wings on a 4th and 3 situation going to the line to gain, right? That's the first thing. Then the next thing is once we, the short wing on the far side maybe could have been more forceful in getting us, hey, we need to move the ball up and helping the short wing on the near side. Then we've got to get the clip on the line. If you recognize, Cruz, the reason we move the down box to the forward stake is so that if this happens, or let's say, God forbid, on the way out, the short wing on the far side that's bringing the chains over drops the clip, you just fumble it, right? The reason we have the down box is so that if we just do something incorrect, we can always say, well, we know the forward stake was on this down box, was right here. Go put the forward stake here, re-put the chains out, and put the clip on the 50-yard line and bring the chains out, right? Instead, we do multiple things wrong. And so for, again, a lack of a better term, we failed in multiple ways, and that's what leads us to disaster. Disaster doesn't happen when one thing goes wrong. It happens when multiple things go wrong. Moving on to play 8, I want to talk about this. So we've talked about defensive actions a lot, right? Look at our linebacker here, number 43. He gives a verbal call here, right? Now, what he is saying is shift, and we've talked about it. The defensive team is allowed to say shift. That's the one word they're allowed to use. But look at him. Like, he says shift, but they're not shifting, right? So, yeah, the defensive team is allowed to say shift, and you can see when he says, watch him, as soon as he barks, this offensive player jumps. So, yes, the defensive team is allowed to say shift. But if you're not actually shifting, it becomes incredibly clear that you're not just saying it to try to call a defensive call. You're doing it for no other purpose, right? I'll go to another example of this. Again, the end zone view. Look at our linebacker right here. It's actually this linebacker here. Look how forceful he pumps his arms, and he barks this, right? And again, go to the high 50. When he makes this call, is the defensive line shifting? No. Right? They jump in the neutral zone, but the defensive line is not shifting. And so if you're not shifting, why are you saying the word shift? And so we've talked about saying the word shift is allowed, but another thing we do want to consider is, are they actually shifting, or are they clearly doing it for no other reason than to use disconcerting signals and to cause the offensive team to jump and cause a false start? So on both of these plays, you would have our absolute support if you called this disconcerting signals. And if the defensive coach says, well, we just said shift and we're allowed to say shift. Yeah, but you're not shifting. It's clear to us that common sense would tell us that if you're not actually shifting, that the only reason you're doing it is to be disconcerting in your calls, and we want to call that against the defense. Play 16. So offensive runner's helmet gets yanked off right here. We get 5 flags, I think, for defensive face mask, which is probably a little bit of a problem. We shouldn't have 5. 2 will do the trick. But what I wanted to note here is the crew did a pretty good job. You'll see originally, you got to remember when an offensive runner's helmet comes off, the play is dead immediately. Okay? So it's not where he falls down. He falls down and gets tackled here at, let's say, the 46-yard line. His helmet actually gets yanked off here at about the 49-43 yard, or excuse me, 49-48. So as soon as the helmet comes off, the play is dead immediately. So the crew actually did a pretty good job. You could see one short wing still standing here at the 49. One walks up, but the crew got together, talked about it, said, where did his helmet actually come off? We ruled that his helmet come off at the 48-yard line, And that's where the foul should be enforced from. Because again, as soon as the runner's helmet gets yanked off, that is where the play is dead, and that's where we'll enforce the foul from. And then play 62. What's the most important line on the field? It's the goal line, right? Goal line. We got to be perfect on our goal line mechanics. You don't even see the play from the high 50. It's a pump play. I wanted you to see it from the high 50. Again, not the best angle at the play. So let's go to the next angle, the end zone view. So we get the punt and it's bouncing. Punt's bouncing. As soon as we recognize that the punt's going to bounce, at this point right here, once that ball starts bouncing, if you're the deep wing, you've got to start making an effort to get to the goal line. We want you on the goal line. And as you'll see, we're not on the goal line at the critical moment, right? To rule on whether this is a touchback or not. We've got to get ourselves to the goal line. If in doubt, get yourself to the goal line. Football is a game of lines. The most important line is the goal line. So if in doubt, get yourself to the goal line. So we should have been at the goal line, and unfortunately we're not, and we get a tight ruling here. Thing I wanted to talk about is the kicking team players trying to worry about, not falling into the end zone. That actually doesn't matter under the high school rules. All that matters is where does he get control. And while his momentum takes him towards the goal line, we'll slow this down. The kicking team player actually possesses the ball clearly here at about the 2 or the 3. So if you rule that he possesses the ball, which I think he does, if he possesses the ball at the 2 or 3 and his momentum takes him into the end zone, this is still down at the 2. As soon as the player has firm control and demonstrates possession in bounds, which I think he does here at the 2-yard line, the play is dead, and what happens after that is immaterial. So if he does happen to fall in the end zone, they still get the ball at the 2-yard line. It's where he possesses the ball, and he does seem to have firm control here. So ruling this down at the 2 or 3-yard line is correct, but again, we've got to get our positioning correct. We want to have our deep wing at the goal line throughout this entire process. Because again, if your feet are moving, your body's moving, your eyes are moving, and we want your eyes still, and we want your eyes still right here at the goal line. So that's our video this week. Again, I know it's a little bit different than what I typically do. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and good week in week 9. Good luck in week 9, I should say.